Okay. So can everyone see my desktop?
Yes.
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 Okay, good. So what I wanted to do tonight was just introduce everyone to the Codio environment and go through some of the challenges, some of the content and the challenges for the first module and answer any questions anyone has. I like to try and keep these conference calls to an hour. If we go over a little, we go over a little. But the important part is that if you have any questions, and I know this is the first week and everybody's just getting used to things, so I know that there will be more questions as time goes on. But if you have any questions, this is the forum to ask them. This is the time when I can address your issues in a very timely manner because I'm right here and can get you familiar with the subject matter. Does that sound like a good plan for everyone?
Yes, indeed.
Yes, sure. Yeah.
Okay. So what you see in front of you is, actually let me make this bigger. What you see in front of you is Codio. I'm currently logged in as a test student. So for the most part, what you see here is what you should be seeing in your Codio environment. So what we have over here under the name column is these are all the challenges. And, well, excuse me. Sorry, these are the, go ahead.
Does anybody else not see the screen? My screen is black.
Mine is too.
Yeah.
Okay, let me try this again. Okay, hold on. Can you see anything now?
Yep, I can see your desktop now.
Okay. For some reason, when I made the window maximize, it apparently went and did weird things. Okay. So everyone can see it now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So what we have here is we have the modules, except for the first one. The first one is the playground. The playground, and I'll show you what that is in a minute, it's just an area where you can try out code. See any code you want. You can just try it out. So what the playground does is it allows you to have a Python environment. What all of Codio does is...
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you have Codio open? Because I can just see your wallpaper and your icons.
Really? Okay,
I can't see Codio.
All right, so you can just see all my beautiful, okay.
Yep.
All right, can you see anything now? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a second.
Okay.
And now I'm going to start sharing again. Okie dokie. Can you see anything at this point?
Your wallpaper and icons again.
Okie dokie. Hold on. I'm going to stop screen sharing.
That's so weird.
It is weird, because didn't you guys see, did any of you see at any point in time my browser?
No.
No,
I
just
did not.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So, hold on. All right, I'm going to try this one more time, and if not, I'm going to have to leave the conference and come back in. But you guys shouldn't have to leave the conference. Okay. It says sharing my screen. Anything showing up?
Nope, same thing.
Wallpaper.
Okay. Now, does the wallpaper look like a mountain?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure it was the right workspace and that for some reason Codio hadn't shared a different workspace. So I'm going to leave the conference and then I'll come back in. But don't you guys hang up, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Actually, I'm still on voice, but I'm bringing back the free conference call again. Okay, so everybody's still there. Is everyone still there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Share my screen. All right. I'm just going to share that and see what happens. Come on. All right. Can you see what's on? Can you see a Chrome browser now? Okay.
A black screen.
So, yeah, that's just because free conference call crashed.
Oh.
I used this all the time last term, and I did not have this problem. So we're going to try this again and hope it works. Okay. So I'm going to start my screen sharing. I'm going to select everything, start sharing. Okay. Can you see?
There it is.
It's there this time.
Yes.
Yay! Okay.
It's not imaginary.
It's not. I'm just not talking to a bunch of people looking at a strand, you know. Okay, can you still see it? Because I just maximized my Chrome browser. Okay. So what we have, I'll go back to where we started. What we have are the Sorry about that. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So, and you will do one or more of these modules for each week up through week 6. Week 7 and 8 are just for finishing up the milestones. So we have 3 different types of grades in the class. We have discussion posts, we have Codio challenges, and we have milestones. The discussion posts are the same as the discussion posts usually are for all of your other SNA2 classes. The milestones will be Python programs that you will write, and you will download those programs probably from your playground as a .py file, and you will upload them into Brightspace. And I will grade them in Brightspace. The challenges are done in Codio, and Codio compiles the grades. But, and I want this, everybody that listens, I want them to hear this. I give partial credit. So even if your Codio challenge isn't exactly right, try it. Try everything. Write what code you think needs to be there. Email me if you have questions, because even if it is not exactly right, you will get some amount of credit for trying. Okay? So that's not in the syllabus, that's not on Brightspace, but that's my policy, and I have checked it with the school, and it's okay to do it. Does anybody have any questions?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So I'm going to start with just going into the personal playground and showing you a little bit about that. So the personal playground is just a coding environment provided by Codio. And it's got these wonderful README sections, and I'm not going to worry about that.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yes.
I'm closed out of my playground. It says completed.
Send me an email, and I will unlock it for you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. So let's say I want to create a new Python file because I want to play around. So I just go to File and say New File, and it will tell me in the root folder, which is fine, and the file name, I'm just going to name it as test.py. Oops, sorry. Test. And what Codio will do is it's going to create an area called a file called test and test.py. I don't know why it did that. It did these weird things last time too. So we're just going to go with test.py. And here it's set up. You can run things. You can try things. So if I wanted to run what was in test.py, whoops, wrong thing, I could just say run current, and it would show a terminal, and the terminal would say hello world. Now, you'll see a few things in this terminal. Don't worry about the welcome to Ubuntu and all of this. Okay, that's just Codio's initiation into this terminal window. Essentially, this terminal window is like having a Linux terminal. It's actually Ubuntu, but it's a Linux terminal in front of you. So what you see here is the command to run the test.py Python script. So I could type Python 3 test.py, and it will say hello world because that is what my test.py showed it to do. And I can change this, say, print conference land, and I can go to terminal, and I can do Python 3 test.py, and it will do what was in test.py. Okay? And so this is the command that says I'm going to run Python, and this is the name of the file. So it's always Python 3, and then the name of the file, and it will run the file. Alternately, you can be on test.py, select run current, and it will run it. So this comes in handy when you are trying things out for your milestones. Maybe you just want to play around, but that's what the personal playground is for. Okay? So I just kind of wanted, I had a lot of questions on emails this week, and so I just wanted to introduce everyone to the personal playground so that you could get an idea. Now, we'll use this more later, but this is just an introduction to what the personal playground is. Okay? Does anybody have any questions?
Nope.
Okay. So I'm signing out of the personal playground now, and I'm going back into my Codio dashboard, and it didn't do that right. So I'm going to go back down here as student A, which is what I was in as. And so you'll see in progress, and you see this completed and not completed. I'm sorry, I didn't know your name. Whoever asked about the personal playground saying it was completed. When you complete something, it actually locks you out. So you don't want to complete it until you're really done. Now the challenge is you're going to want to complete at the end of that week when you turn them in. If you don't, I won't mark off for it. But for the playground, never mark it as completed, or you're going to have to send me an email. I'm going to have to open it for you. Okay? So now we're going to go into the first module. The first module that this class goes through is numeric strings and expressions. Sorry, numeric and string expressions. And some of these you will do one a week. Some of these you'll do multiple ones, like lists, 2D lists, and dictionaries. It's all in a given week. And also you'll see like IT 140 Project 1 draft. That will be the draft of your first milestone. And the milestones in this class are done so you turn in a draft, and then about 2 weeks later you turn in a final. And the purpose of that is you can turn in the draft, and what's going to happen is I'm going to provide you with feedback. If there is any issues at all with the draft, I can help you correct them before you turn in the final. And the final is worth substantially more points than the draft is. So that process helps you get a better grade and hopefully understand what's going on. So that's kind of another thing that's a little different about this class than maybe some other SNA2 classes that you've taken. We have this draft and final for the milestones.
That's nice.
So we're going to go, yeah, it is nice. And it really is made to help anybody who possibly can understand what's going on. And I'm here as well. I mean, I work a full-time job, but I do try and answer emails pretty regularly. I try and get to them within about 24 hours. And I can be reached via text and phone, although my school phone is different than my normal cell phone, so I don't always have that with me. But I will try and always return your calls. So now let's go into numeric and string expressions. And this is really our introduction to Python. Because until you understand how to use numbers and how to use strings in Python, you can't do much of anything. Because those are pretty much the basic data types. So this is just an introduction to coding, and this basically goes through and you can go through this yourself whenever you want. But the nice thing about Codio is that it provides you with this area over here on the left where you can program in it, just like that window that we saw on the playground. And then you have an opportunity here to run the code. So this button says run the code to the left, and it will show you the output. Okay? Here's your output, and it's input 1 is 3, input 4 is 5. Now, what this becomes important because what we're dealing with here is partly what Python is doing and partly how Codio works. This section right here, from line 2 through line 5, is something that you're going to see a variation of in pretty much every Codio program, every Codio script that you're going to run. And what this is and what this says is, line 2 says import sys. This is something you're going to see in every Python program. An import sys just says, hey Python, provide me with standard system commands. Because one of the great things about Python is it comes with all these different libraries. Okay? System libraries, which we use now, to regular expression libraries, to database libraries, to Gui libraries, all kinds of libraries, all kinds of modules, as they're called with Python. And all you have to do to get access to a lot of really good already written code is make sure that module is available and then use this statement, import, and then sys, or import regex, or import, SQLite 3. So line 2, you're going to see in just about every Python program that you do, and it will start with import sys. What does the sys library give us? The sys library gives us things like the print function, because this is a function. Even though we don't know how to write print functions yet, or we don't know how to write functions yet, we're going to use a lot of them. And print is a function, and it is provided because we told it, hey, bring in sys. Python, you have this great library that's always available called sys. Bring it in and let me use it. Another function that's available is int. Okay? Now, on line 3, what you're going to see here is you're going to see digit 1. Digit 1 is a variable. A name of a variable is digit 1. Digit 1 holds a piece of information. And that piece of information could be anything. But for this particular program, that piece of information is an integer. And that integer is provided by Codio. Well, how do I know that? I know that, first of all, because this int function. You see the word int, open parentheses says, I'm going to be passing something to a function. Close parentheses says, I'm done passing things to a function. So the int function in Python says, take whatever I'm passing in. Does everybody have it on mute? Okay. Take whatever it is that I'm passing in and turn it into an integer if you can. And the thing inside these parentheses is sys.argv of 1. Well, it's not a coincidence that this is sys and this is sys. Okay? This argv of 1 comes from sys. And what argv is, it's a command line argument. So if you're sitting there and you're typing something at a terminal, and you say mypython.py and the number 2, that argument will come in, that number 2 could come into Python as a value. And that value has to be stored someplace. So what we're doing in line number 3 is we are storing a value that is a type integer into a namespace, and that namespace is digit 1. So, and that's what lines 3, 4, and 5 do, okay? There's a variable called digit 1, it's going to store an integer. There's a variable called digit 2, it's going to store another integer. There's a variable called digit 3, it's going to store yet another integer. All of these integers are going to be given to us by Codio. Okay? So whenever you are seeing anything in your Codio that has a sys.arg whatever, arg of 1, 2, 3, whatever, Codio is giving us a value, and we're probably going to have to do something with that value. In this case, we're going to print out that information. So again, we have this print function that's given to us by sys, and we're going to print something after it. And all print does is say, print this out to the screen. And so in this case, Codio is going to redirect it into this nice little area over here. So when I do run the code to the left, it looks like it blinks. But what Codio does is it actually executes what's in this Python script and prints it out here. Now this is going to become important because when you do the challenges, you're going to try the challenges, and it's going to print out underneath the challenge whether or not you got it right and what your output was as opposed to what Codio thinks it ought to be. So we have a couple of different types of data in this script, okay? We have integers and we have strings. Strings are just that. They're just, a text on a page. That's all they are. They're just a series of letters and or numbers squashed together and make a string. That's all it is. And a string has certain properties. It has a length and it has content. And a string is always started with either a double quote or a single quote and ended with a double quote or a single quote. So we know that this is a string. It's a string because it starts with a double quote and ends with a double quote. Now, we know that digit 1 is an integer. We know that because we have this thing called int. But there's also another way to define an integer. Define a variable with an integer. I-N-T-E-G-E-R. Okay. So I'm going to say my int equal 3. Okay? That's completely valid in Python. What I have done is I have created a variable. The variable's name is myInt, and its value is going to be 3. MyInt is a name, and that name has to be unique. I can't then say, okay, well, I can, but there will be one myInt for the entire script. So this myInt is 3. This didn't create a second myInt. It just set the value of myInt to 5. So if I print myInt, you're going to see a 5. If I do it here, you're going to see a 3 and then a 5. That's because there's only ever one myInt. So variable names are unique to a script. The other thing to remember with Python is case sensitive and space sensitive. So myInt, that little I, is not the same as this one. So if I run the code, whoa, what just happened over here? Okay? It's saying there's a problem. Name myInt is not defined. Well, what do they mean myInt isn't defined? I have a myInt here and a myInt here. Well, I changed that I from an uppercase I to a lowercase I. So this is now different than that. The myInt on line 8 is different than the myInt on line 10 because the myInt on line 8 is lowercase. I changed that I to a lowercase. So why did I get this error over here? Well, I got that error because at line 9, nothing exists that's called my uppercase I-N-T. Only something exists on line 9 that's my lowercase I-N-T. Is this pretty clear to everybody so far?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So that's why I got this error message over here. So if I change this to a lowercase I, everything runs fine again. Everything's okay. So that was the other point I wanted to make. We have two types here. We have strings and integers. And when we define a variable, we give it a name. The name has to be unique for the script. And cases matter. Case matters. So this myInt is not the same as this myInt. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. So you'll see here, as I'm going through Codio, that I have these wonderful little Python script areas on the left. And on the right-hand side, I have content. I have the content that they want to take me through. And so I can look at the content and associate it with the scripts on the left-hand side. So here we're talking about strings and numbers, and we have this stir function. If you go back to 1.1, we had an int function, and the int takes a string and makes it an integer. A stir function takes an integer and makes it a string. Well, why in the world would I want to do these things? Well, first of all, we go back to 1.1 again. There are things you can do with an integer that you can't do with a string. With an integer, you can do arithmetic. There's absolutely no point in multiplying my int by my int. Okay? This makes no sense. Okay? Does anybody have any idea what no sense is going to come out as? Does anybody think I'm going to get an error? I didn't.
Would it be 15?
Huh. Oh, I'm sorry. Duh. My bad. It is 15 because I wasn't thinking that I had made them integers. So let me try something else to prove my point that I didn't just make. So the point I was trying to make, and I apologize for not doing that, is that you can't multiply strings. You can multiply int. So now if I run the code, I'm going to get an exception. And that exception says you can't multiply sequence by non-int of type stir. So what I have tried to do here is do arithmetic on strings, and I can't do that. Python won't let me. So that's why I get this error message here. And that really was the point I was trying to make 2 minutes ago. So my apologies if I confused anyone. So you cannot multiply strings together and have them have any meaning. You can multiply numbers together and have them have meaning, just like you would when we're talking about English and we're dealing with arithmetic. So I'm going to comment these out. And by the way, a comment is simply the pound sign in front of a line. Okay. And I hope my bad example wasn't too confusing for people. So we have integers and we have strings. On 1.1, we went from string to integer, and on 1.2, we're going from integers to strings. And that's nice because you can concatenate strings, and strings have length, whereas integers don't have length. So string, and things you can do with integers that you can't do with strings. Okay, we've already seen errors. I showed you that a couple minutes ago. I'm going to let you guys go through understanding what the errors are. If you ever have an error that you can't, that you don't understand, send it to me along with the code, and I'll do my best to take a look at it in, that day if I can. And what we hear at 1.4 is just this is an experiment area, so you can go in and play with code, and you just have a run the code button. When you see experiments in any of the other Codio modules, that's all it's for. So, numeric expressions. Now, what we're seeing here to the left is called a float. A float is basically a flow chart that you can run through change the values of, and see what happens. And it is designed to help you understand the logic that is going on inside of a script at any point in time. You'll see these flows throughout Codio. And my suggestion is you run them whenever possible. So if I want to run, I can either step through or I can run the whole thing. If I run it, you'll see program finished, close. I don't like to run it like that because I don't think that it gets the maximum benefit. What I like to do is step through it. Now what happens when you step through it is you start at a start area and you'll have different pieces of information. So this is a standard flow chart. This is going to be input 0, input 1, input 2. Input 0 has a value of 3. Input 1 is going to have a value of 4. Input 2 is going to have a value of 5. Now the nice thing that can happen with the floats is you can change these values and see what happens. In this float, it's not that important, but when you start getting to conditionals, those floats are going to be really important to help you understand what's going on. So I have just started this, and what I see down here is console, which is what would print out to a screen, and variables, which is going to tell you the name of any variable at any given step in the flow. Now you can think of the flowed step as a line of code. It's not always 100%, but it's pretty close. So I'm going to run through this. So we just find variables. And so now I'm here. You can see where you are because you have this bright green line around it. And this says, is somebody not muted? I'm hearing something that sounds kind of windy. Thank you. So I'm at this step, and this step in the float is num input of 0 times input of 1 plus input of 2. So what happens when I execute that? Okay, you'll see that num, the value of num is 27. Well, the value is, whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to make anybody sick to their stomach. So the value of num is 27 because I have a variable named num, and I assigned it to the product of input 0 times input 1 plus input 2. So here, now I'm at this space right here, and it's going to say num is plus num. So this is essentially like printing out, okay? So to the console, it'll say num is 27. And then the output of 0 is 27. I'm sorry, this was a debug statement. The output of the float is 27, and I'm done because I got to the end. So this is essentially like, you can visualize it as if you are walking through a Python script. Okay? So does anybody have any questions about the floats?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. So numeric expressions, that was what the float was. Here we have the code equivalent to what the float is. And that is another nice thing about Codio is if they have a float, they almost always have the exact code that goes with it. And they will remind you of the flow chart. We can run the code, and it says num is 27 and then 27. So here, if we read it, we have our friend import sys, which we're always going to have. Here we have 3 numbers that Codio is giving us. We know Codio is giving us because it's going to have the sys.argv stuff. We're going to convert it to integer. What I mean by converting it to integer is that for Python, almost everything is a string. You get something in, when it ingests something into the program from the command line, Python assumes it's always a string. So if you want to use it as something other than a string, you have to convert it. And that's what the int function does. Now we're going to do our arithmetic, and then we're going to print things out, just like the float did. So here we have our first challenge, okay? Whenever you see check it, this is a challenge, and this is something that you're going to get points for. Now, I'm going to run check it. I know this is going to be wrong. All right, the nice thing about Codio and the nice thing about the challenge is you can hit that check it button 100 times until I go in to grade it on usually Monday nights. There's no harm no matter how many times you check it. Okay, you can do it again and again and again. I don't want you to have to do it again and again and again. I'm hoping that as the challenges get harder, these conference calls will help you be confident enough so that you don't get frustrated. But even if you are, you can just hit this button as many times as you want, and it's not going to count off your grade. So don't worry about it. So let's see what a challenge is. Well, the name of the challenge is addition, so my guess is we're going to have to do some addition. And what this says is your code should expect one input, and when I read this, in the code, in the script, what I should expect to see is something similar to what I see on line 2. Okay? Your code should expect an input says somewhere there's going to be a sys.argv of some number, 1, 2, 3, depending on the number of pieces of information Codio is giving to me, and that piece of information is going to be assigned to a variable. So in this case, our variable name is capital N, and capital N is going to be given a piece of information, one input from Codio. And we can assume, well, when we read the code, we know we're expecting an integer. And also, when we go over here and we read this problem, and it says, all you need to do is add 12 to it and output the result, that's what we have to do. So we can assume that since we're doing addition, that what we're getting in is an integer. So I'm going to go through this challenge real quick, and then I want anybody to ask me questions. So what we have to do is we need to print out the result from adding 12 to number n. So I can do this in one line. Does anybody think that's going to work?
Yeah, I would think so.
And it did. It's very simple, very easy. I have n that's an integer. I want to add 12, and so I added 12 and I printed it out. Print says print it to the console. In Codio's lexicon of challenges, it's going to play the role of the console, and it's going to compare what it thinks you should get to what it thinks you should have to what it has. And now notice you can't just put 13 here. I can't just say print 13 because that might not always be the right answer. This is the wrong answer because Codio now gave me a 0. So Codio, when you run these challenges, may change the values that it gives you just to see if you're right, just to see if your code is correct. So you have to be careful to not just try and run check it and then see if you can print out the right answer and get 100 on it. Okay? Anybody have any questions on the challenges?
Nope.
Okay. So let's just do one more challenge, and then I want to see if anybody has any other questions before we wrap up the conference call. Or if you've gone through some of the challenges and you have specific questions about the challenges. So I'm just going to do this one other challenge real quick. And so this challenge says we pass in 3 inputs, A, B, and C, so I can expect these 3 lines of code right here. First of all, we have our friend import sys, and then I have a variable named capital A, a variable named capital B, and a variable named capital C. Those 3 variables are going to have 3 pieces of information. And now we have this new thing here called a float. Okay? A float is just a number with a decimal place. So float is a function provided by sys that's going to take the input that Codio is giving us and turn it into a number with a decimal place. So it could be 1.0, it could be 5.7. All we know is that a float is different than an int because an integer never has a decimal point and a float does. And Codio is giving us 3 of them. And what we have to do is we have to output the result of A times B plus C divided by 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say sum equals A times B plus C divided by 3. And then I'm going to print sum. Anybody think that'll work?
Yep.
Okay. Well, it looks like it worked. And it worked because I simply used arithmetic on the floats. Now, I want to show you just one thing. I'm just going to, don't you do this to your code, but I'm going to just change that so it's not a float anymore. What happens if I check it? Well, I'm going to get a problem. I'm going to get this exception. And this exception says you can't multiply a sequence by non-int of type float. And that's because, even though it doesn't, the error isn't clear, it's because this came in as a string. So if I make that a float again, there we have it. It works. So does anybody have any questions about playgrounds, Codios, or the challenges that we've gone through?
Nope.
Nope.
Anybody? Go ahead.
So I have a quick question. So the challenges in Codio, as we mark them as completed, that's submitted, what is it that we have to download to upload to Brightspace?
The milestones. So
okay.
When we go back, if I go back to my Codio dashboard, okay, we have these things called Project 1. You'll see Project 1, Project 2, Project 3, Project 4. Okay? And right here are the drafts, and then you can redo them for the final. So if I go into Project 1 draft, this is our first milestone. And what Codio is going to do is it's going to take you through building the program step by step. At the end, this will end up in your playground, and you're going to download that. You're going to save it as, and then you're going to upload that to Brightspace. Okay?
Okay.
So even though it's here with the modules, if you see project in it, anything with project in it is what you're going to upload to Brightspace. And in the project areas, there are detailed instructions about how to do that.
Okay, thank you.
So is everybody ready to give Codio a try and to work on numeric and string expressions, or have you tried some of them and do you have questions?
So far, so good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that good for everybody?
Yes.
I just finished a application development class, and I'll tell you, Python is so much more intuitive. I really like it so far.
What were you coding in for the web development class?
Java.
Okay. I do Java too. Java, JavaScript, Python, all kinds of things.
I'm not sure if
So
it was
the
code or the format that I learned it in. But anyway.
You know, the format has a lot to do with it.
Yes.
So do you guys want to go through there's about 5 minutes left. Do you want to look at any of the other challenges? Or are you guys just ready to go off and do your own thing?
Can I just ask one quick question?
Absolutely.
How about an IDE for Python? Is there one that you'd recommend that's the best IDE?
Well, there's a lot of different integrated development environments. For those who are new to this and don't know what IDEs are integrated development environments. And they provide a lot of great functionality. When I taught Python as an experiential learning course, I suggested the Pycharm. It was very easy. In fact, I might be able to bring it up. It was very easy to use. You don't have to do a lot of external management for Python, for the Python version, and you can have multiple different Python versions in it. If you're looking for something and it's very lightweight. It's not like a NetBeans or an Eclipse. It can be a very heavyweight integrated development environment. It takes up a lot of space. It takes up a lot of memory processing when you're running it. That said, if you really do want the community support for your integrated development environment, I would go with Eclipse. Or if you're planning on branching out after Python, I would go with Eclipse. It's got most of the community support in it. The only thing that it doesn't have is a really good GUI developer in it. So if you're looking for lightweight, easy management, I would go with Pycharm Community Edition. If you don't mind the heavier weight and you're not really going to be doing a lot of GUI development, I would suggest Eclipse. And so those are the two that I would go with.
Could you spell the name of the first one for me, if you don't mind?
It's
There's some
P-Y.
tapping, and I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with the tapping too. Here, I will bring it up and show you it.
Okay, awesome.
This is it right here. Pycharm Community Edition.
I can't see it. Okay, just.
Can you see it now?
Oh, there it is. Yep, I can see it now.
Okay. So this is what the integrated development environment looks like. Okay. And so in this case, here's a Python file that I was working on. So so this is, I think it was something I was grading. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Let's see. New file. So here you can just see what it's like. It actually does a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. But in this case, the Python file. So I can say print. Whoops. And run it. Whoops, sorry. Run. Test. So there we go. So that's what it is. And you can refactor, you can navigate, you can create all kinds of things. You can add external libraries. you'll see that I'm using Python 3.5. You can, and there are huge amounts of different external libraries you can add with Python. The Python community is huge, and you can do game development, you can do, you know, scientific development, you can do GUI development. So here's where you would manage any of those libraries. And it's got a good GUI editor because if you'll notice, see this little red mark right here? That red mark says you did something wrong. And when I mouse over it, it says unresolved reference hello. So it's telling you that when Python runs, it's not going to hello is. And the reason it's not going to know what hello is because hello is a string and I did not put it in quotes. And when I put it in quotes, lo and behold, that goes away. And comments are in gray, so you'll never mistake what's a line of code for a comment. And when I run something, it shows up down here in the console area. And if I want to do an input, I can play with my input down here. So, and frankly, when I grade, I grade your milestones, I will be taking your milestones from, I will be downloading them from Brightspace. I will be putting them onto my computer, and I will be running them through Pycharm. I will not run them through Codio. I will always run them through Pycharm, and I will take a look and see what work you've done, and if there are errors, what errors you have, and then I will provide you comments. But this is how I grade when it comes to your milestones. So this is what I use. Pycharm is what I use on my computer when I am when I'm grading and when I'm doing my own Python development here at home. So the one thing you will have to do, though, is for whatever operating system you have, you will have to download the version of Python that you're using, that you're going to use. But that's an easy thing to do from python.org. And if anybody has any questions about that, we'll take it offline, and I'll try and put some instructions about how to download Pycharm and how to download and install Python. Okay?
Yep. Sounds great.
But okay, so send me an email if you want that. I don't want to put it up as an announcement because I don't want people to think they have to.
Right.
But send me an email if this is something you're interested in, and I'll email you the instructions back, okay?
Okay.
Sounds good.
Anybody have any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, are we all good?
Yep.
Okay, everybody have a great weekend, and please email me, let me know if you have any questions, and I plan on being here next Wednesday. I will put up another announcement, and please confirm if you're coming, because if nobody comes, I don't hold the conference calls, which means there's no recording. Okay?
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Professor.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Good night, everyone.
Good night.